Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gabriel John Fan TV back at you with a video. At the content of the video, go smash that like button. At the content's channel, go and subscribe, man. Look, yeah, watched the Ravens game yesterday. I'm currently on the cruise ship in this bathroom because that's the only quiet place I can really find to record a video. But so yeah, I still want to talk about the game, still get some of these videos out and whatnot. So that's what we go through. We'll talk about the game. All right. So the Ravens win yesterday, 23-16 versus the Cleveland Browns in a game that wasn't pretty. It was a slugfest all the way throughout. But the Ravens found a way to win. Right. These division games are tough. The game preview I said is you don't want to fall into a trap game, and the Ravens damn sure fell through the trap door. But they climbed their way out of it, and they didn't get stuck, right? So, in the past, this would be a game that the Ravens lose, right? You know what I mean? But they didn't. I think I read a stat that said this is the first time in 4 or 5 years that the Ravens have swept the season matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, and it's not shocking given the Ravens do lose these kind of games, but when you think about it, the Browns haven't been good over that 4 or 5 year stretch. So now the fact that the Ravens have lost at least one game a season to this Cleveland Browns organization is crazy. But this year they don't do that, right? So I'll give them credit for that. All right. You see a little wobble. That's just the boat. Anyway, so that's one observation. But standout performance, right? Standout performance, man. I want the first guy I want to talk about is Mark Andrews, right? Mark Andrews, the numbers aren't big in terms of yards and catches, but he becomes the all-time receiving yards leader in Ravens history. I think he's 4 or 5 catches away from being the all-time receptions leader. That would also pass Derek Mason. So shout out to Mark Andrews for that. 3 catches, 32 yards. Then he had what was the play of the game, right? Tom Monkey goes deep in his bag, goes the reverse, roll out, tush push. Mark Andrews goes for 30 yards, touchdown. The Ravens are getting more and more creative with the tush push. And now I think next week when it comes to kind of situation, they're just going to line up and straight up run it, and teams aren't going to know what to do about it, right? So the Ravens really opened up the door for themselves when it comes to that play. But to me, yeah, that's the play of the game. Mark Andrews had a phenomenal game, honestly. And when Lamar Jackson needed him, he was there. So, that's good. And I know Zay Flowers had a good game as well. He had like 3 for 78. He had the big 44-yard catch. I wish he would have scored. Zay Flowers he's more quick than he is fast. He's not a slow receiver, but you really don't see that burn right there. But so shout out to Mark Andrews for that. All right. And then some other players, right? The offense did not play how we wanted them to play. We're going to be completely honest, but we shouldn't be surprised because this Cleveland team, because of their front line, they always give the Ravens problems. But the defense, we can't sleep on what the defense did. All right. So for the defense, I'm going to give the first stand out to Zach Orr, right? Zach Orr has really turned it around. Now, listen, this Cleveland offense is not very good. They're not very talented. We saw both rookie quarterbacks yesterday, Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. It's not a lot working around these guys, their offensive line. So all the caveats you want to throw out there, right? But Zach Orr still put the pressure on both young quarterbacks, right? He still did that, made them look rushed, made them look hurried, made them look flustered. So for the game, Ravens had 10 QB hits, 3 sacks, and an interception. So the Ravens secondary, Kyle Hamilton, Chidobe Awuzie, Nate Wiggins with his interception, all standout performers. Chidobe Awuzie had like 3 or 4 pass deflections, had like 5 tackles. Kyle Hamilton had like 9, 10 tackles on the game. This was a game where the Ravens secondary really, really took over, right? Like I said, besides that one drive where, Judkins kind of ran the ball over the Ravens and the offensive line was getting a little bit of push, the Ravens stopped them, So this defense, if you take away the points off of turnovers, right? The muff punt and then the tip interception touchdown. This Browns team offense scored 6 points. 6, you know what I'm saying? So it's a really, really good defensive effort from the Ravens, right? If we're being completely honest, it's a really good defensive effort. And Zach Orr, since the bye week, the Ravens have been a good defense. Now, they're not playing the top quality opponents in terms of quarterback play and things like that, but you can only play who's on your schedule. When things change, the assessment will change, right? But right now, you're playing who's on your schedule, and who's on their schedule, they're playing them well. All right, so kudos to him for that. All right. Now I guess there's some observations, right? Because for the defense, it'll be good. For the offense, it won't be that good, right? You know what I mean? So we continue on with defense. Like I said, I like the game Zach Orr called. I thought that he called a game that was very controlled. He didn't really allow any explosive plays, right? The biggest play the Browns had passing wise was, down the seam and at the end of the first half. and that led to one of their field goals because of a very, very stupid fault, not fault, so offside penalty by the Ravens special teams. Ravens special teams did not have a very good day yesterday at all. And then the 2 minute drive where Shador rips a dig route over the middle of the Fannin, right? Besides that, they didn't really get much up down the field, right? So good play on that. The defensive line was okay. I think a lot of the quarterback hits were kind of just schemed up things, right? The D line just straight up winning one-on-ones, but I didn't see a lot of that. Not saying that it wasn't there, but just from my first eye looking at the game, I didn't see a lot of that. But the guys still got pressure on the quarterback. That's what you want to do, right? Especially these young quarterbacks, get them out their game, get them out their, get them off their spot. You can make things happen. So that's a beautiful thing, right? So I was happy to see that, right? Now listen, they didn't go against a great unit, and we're going to keep saying that. But I'm going to give the Ravens defense credit for playing who's in front of them and not making them look like an all-star cast. All right, if you're going to play these teams that are lesser in terms of offensive talent, make them look like that. And the Ravens did that. All right, so that's a big deal, right? The Ravens had to win this game. They get them to 5-5. The Steelers won their game, so they're keeping pace in the division. As long as they can do that, the Ravens have a solid, very, very good chance of winning this division, right? So these are games that are must wins all the way throughout, and the Ravens right now are winning those games, right? And some of this has to do with the strength of the defense, right? So kudos to them. Now, offensively, right? Offensively is where most of the complaints are going to come from. But it's not really anything new or really anything unfounded that we don't already know. This Ravens offensive line is one of the worst units in the NFL, right? They have good players, they have talent on the offensive line, but they're not strong, they're not physical, they're a soft unit up front. All right, and every time the Ravens play the Cleveland Browns, it gets like this because of Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett had, I believe, 4 sacks yesterday, 3 in the first half, 1 in the second half. All right, but it's not just him. It's the fact that if the Ravens play a team that is going to be physical across the line of scrimmage, they have no match for that, right? Falele is 6'5", 380 pounds, and he's not physical. Voorhees is not physical. Linderbaum's already an undersized center, excuse me. Ronnie Stanley has regressed from last year. Rosengarten has regressed from last year. So this points to a couple of things for me. One, the offensive line coach, George Warhop, is actively damaging talented players, right? Linderbaum looks bad. Rosengarten looks bad. So the whole offensive line cannot regress without looking at the offensive O-line coach, right? Now, I watch Coach Jackson. I watch him talk about it. The techniques that the offensive line are using are not effective, right? And it points to a sign of the technique that they're being taught is bad, all right? So that's one thing, right? So you got bad technique, you got players regressing, and then you got guys like Voorhees and Falele are just not very good, right? And I'm not trying to pick on these guys because they're not the only ones losing up front. I talked about the whole offensive line regressing, right? But when they lose, you can see it drastic ways, right? One of the sacks is Lamar Jackson tries to step into the pocket and cut back, right? He can't because one, he's blocked by Voorhees. So now the lane that he can escape through is blocked. 2, Falele gets completely spun like a top. So the guy that when Lamar Jackson is going to try to cut back, he's blocked by Voorhees. So now that guy can sack Lamar Jackson. Okay, so it's like a calamity of errors on top of each other. All right, so that makes them a non-starter right now. Then the 2 big plays the Ravens had, right? The big Zay Flowers play, the big Derrick Henry. I lost it. Forgot his name. The big Derrick Henry one, right? These plays, I get so nervous when the Ravens do not score on these plays because that means we got to go in the red zone. And not even in the red zone, inside the 10, inside the 5. When you have to really play big boy football and dominate, I get so nervous because I know that this offensive line cannot hold up their weight. They cannot do it, right? I know that, since we didn't score that long touchdown, this drive is going to end in a field goal, right? I believe they scored on the Zay Flowers drive. Now I believe I think they kicked the field goal on the Derrick Henry drive. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that, right? I know one of those ended in the Derrick Henry touchdown when they pushed him into the end zone. I know that for a fact. But so that is a terrible thing. When you're the Baltimore Ravens and you get inside the 5-yard line, and I'm scared because I know we don't have the capacity to punch it in. That's absolutely horrendous. Okay, so that's one thing, right? The offensive line, all right. And then secondly, right? All right, listen, Todd Monken, right? I I believe in what Tom Lincoln is doing. I believe he's a good offensive coordinator, but certain things have to change, right? I talk about this every week, and I'm not just talking about it for my health. I'm really not, right? The Ravens cannot just line up in shotgun and pass the football. If you're going to put this offensive line in straight drop back scenarios out the shotgun, you're going to get shedded all across the line. You cannot do it, all right? Listen, whether it's first down, second down, whatever it is, the Ravens aren't even running the ball effectively out of shotgun, right? They're not really doing zone read because I believe Lamar Jackson is not fully healthy, which is fine. He's come up the hamstring injury, his first one ever. I don't believe he fully wants to open it up. And, I don't even want to say fear, but, concern of, maybe re-entering a hamstring. And I completely understand that. The Ravens offense should be able to function without leaning on the 100% on the abilities of Lamar Jackson's legs. And they've done that before. So that's cool, right? So if you're not going to be able to really run zone read, you need to be in shotgun less. All right. When you're in shotgun, you're putting the maximum amount of stress on this offensive line. That's not good. Can't do it. The Ravens either need to be in pistol or they need to be in under center, right? If you want to go back, we don't want to run Greg Roman's offense. I'm just talking about alignment. If the Ravens want to run more pistol, I think that could help because you can still get play action off a pistol. You can still, if you want to do the zone read thing, you can still get it off a pistol. You don't really need to do that. But either way, it allows the defense to think about the threat of play action, right? Because listen, if you do a play action out of shotgun, the defense is still, to me, when I watch how they play the Ravens, they're not really concerned about that. When the defense comes up, it's either out of pistol or it's out of under center. If the Ravens really want to help protect this very, very, very bad offensive line, they need to have more plays that protect this offensive line, which is under center plays, right? They run better under center. You get Ricard in the game, you get Kolar in the game, right? Some extra blockers. The Zay throw was a pretty good throw, but that was under center play action. Under center play action rollout. Lamar just throws a beautiful ball rolling to his right to Zay Flowers. Another great throw to Zay Flowers is, once again, play action. Lamar steps up, avoids Grant Delpit, boom, a strike over the middle to Zay Flowers. Those are the two of the best throws of the game, and they come from the very exact same thing. So for me, when I see the Ravens line up, when there was a sequence where the Ravens, they had a great play under center, right? It might have even been a Zay play. The next play, line up a shotgun, Lamar Jackson gets sacked, -9 yards. Why are we doing this? All right, so listen, Tom, okay. You have to modify the offense because the offensive line is bad. People are going to blame you for the red zone struggles, and some of that is on you for the play calling. They're going to say, get more creative in the red zone. There's only so much creativity and trick plays you can run in the red zone. Eventually, your man, the offensive line, will have to go mile on mile and move somebody off the ball. But they can't do that, right? So it's only so much creativity you can have. Okay, so let's get that out there first. But when it comes to just, hey, we're going to be in shotgun, you're putting this team at a disadvantage because the offensive line is a disadvantage. So I would love to see them be more like, a Rams, a Lions, when Dan Campbell kind of took over that play calling. Be more under center. Attack the defense that way. That's what I want to see, right? Because you can't just line up a shotgun. This offensive line is not capable of holding up. They're just not. All right. So that's my thoughts. That's my opinion on that, right? When it comes to the offense this game, right? And listen, and overall thoughts on the game. The Ravens do this every couple. They do this a couple times every year, right? And especially in the division game, it's hard to call a division game a quote unquote trap game because you know each other so well, but. You could see this game coming from a mile away, right? I was hoping the Ravens wouldn't be able to fall into this and be able to win by 10 plus points, but it didn't happen that way, right? They won a game where the offense didn't play that well, and that hasn't always been the case, right? If the Ravens offense has this kind of game, we usually see a loss that follows, right? So I would say that's a good thing, right? They won this kind of game. Now, when it comes to the future, the Ravens have to be honest about the personnel that they have on the offensive side of football. All right. Shotgun is a big part of what they do. They have to eliminate a lot of it. Unless it's 3rd and 6 plus, you really don't need to be in shotgun. I know it's the wave of the NFL, it's how NFL offenses run, but I'm just being very, very honest. You do not need to be in shotgun just to be in shotgun. You don't have to do it, okay? Being like for real, you do not have to do it. It's not mandatory for you to be in shotgun. With this offensive line, with this team, you're actively putting Lamar Jackson in harm's way by having him back there with offensive linemen that are not strong or physical at the point of attack. All right, the way that you can mandate, subside some of this rush, some of this attack, is you have to have a believable play action game. That's the only way to do it. All right, whether you want to be in pistol or whether you want to be on this end, you have to figure out which one you want to lean on more. Because pure shotgun is not going to get it done with this old line. It's just not. All right, that's the main takeaway from this game. Listen, Myles Garrett is a great player. Right, he has 14 sacks on the year, something like that, something crazy. I don't know. He had 4 sacks this game. He had 5 versus the Patriots. He's an amazing player. We can't just chalk this up to, Myles Garrett is great. No, this Ravens offensive line is not good. So you have to find ways to protect this offensive line. Simple as that. The holes and the needs in this team are glaring. They don't change week to week. It's literally the same things that you see last week, you'll see this week. All right. Offensive line, pass rush is hit or miss. Right? The Ravens aren't getting home with pressure. You're going to have all day on. Like I said, the best play the Browns had was the Shador throw across the middle to Fannin. He has all day, right? When the Ravens decide to send the house, that's when they got pressure. But when they don't, it's usually they have all day back there to sit around there, right? And a better quarterback, a young, more experienced quarterback, they're going to pick you apart. Simple as that, right? So the glaring holes of this Ravens team are apparent on both sides of the ball, and they're not changing, right? So it is what it is. Ravens got to figure out a way to navigate that and do better, and we'll see if they can do better. I'm not sure if they can. This season may end up just being a lost year, honestly, just because of front office failures, head coaching failures when it comes to addressing the trenches on both sides of the football, right? This game, football, you can have all the fancy things, the motions, whatever. At the end of the day, a lot of football is, can you dominate the man in front of you, right? The man in front of you was in your way. Can you move him out of your way? That's a lot of football. And the Ravens don't really have that on either side of the ball consistently, right? Defense, you got guys like Travis Jones who could do that, right? He's a monster, all right? Offensively, there's nobody on the offensive line that can do that. The Ravens' best blocker are 2 tight ends, and that's Charlie Kohler and that's Pat Ricard. That's the Ravens' 2 best blockers right now, and that's where they stand. But that's my thoughts on the game. The Ravens win the game. But the same thing remains apparent that it's hard to see what this team can do further along down the season when they have these major gaps and glaring holes on the team. But, it's a positive and negative outlook, but, it is what it is at this point, right? That the Ravens have made their bid. They got to lay in it now. But that's my thoughts on the game. Obviously, guys, give me your thoughts on the game. But it's Gabriel, to the Fan TV. I'm out.